No one paid much attention when the older man walked through the front doors of Middleton Civic Hall. He wasn't loud. He didn't dress to be noticed. But the way he moved, slow, steady, upright, made people glance twice. His name was Marshall Cade, and he had driven 11 hours from Arkansas to watch his granddaughter graduate. The building buzzed with energy, parents adjusting ties, balloons brushing against low ceilings, rows of chairs scraping across the gym floor. A brass band played quietly in the corner, warming up for the ceremony. Marshall walked with care, a small envelope tucked into the inside pocket of his black blazer. It held a hand-drawn card, made 10 years ago by a little girl with crooked handwriting and a big heart. For Papa. Don't ever miss my big day. He didn't intend to. His shoes weren't polished like a soldier's. His jacket wasn't decorated with medals. But the quiet power in his gaze came from something deeper. Vietnam wasn't just a memory for him. It was a part of his skin. Years later, the scars still spoke louder than most people's pride. At the entrance, a young volunteer scanned his printed invitation and pointed him toward the front row. "Reserved for family," she said with a polite smile. Marshall nodded. "Thank you kindly." He walked down the aisle, passing rows of excited parents, some chatting nervously, others fidgeting with phone cameras. When he found his seat, he took a deep breath and looked toward the stage. A banner read, "Class of 2024, rise together." He smiled faintly. "Rise together," he whispered to himself. That's what it always was about. The gym filled quickly. Faculty in long robes filed in from the side. Seniors lined up near the curtain, laughing and adjusting caps. Marshall spotted her, Jordan, standing near the back. Braids tied neatly, honor cords around her neck, eyes glowing with the same fire he'd seen in her mother years ago. He sat straighter. Then the anthem started. People stood. Marshall remained seated. Not out of disrespect, but because he didn't need to stand for anyone to know where he stood. His entire body was still, his hand over his heart, eyes ahead. But something shifted. Two men, both in black uniforms with security stitched in yellow across their chests, entered from the far side. At first, they looked like they were checking the aisles. But their direction was too precise. Too focused. They were heading straight toward him. Marshall noticed but didn't react. His hands rested on his knees. His eyes stayed on the stage. The first guard leaned in. "Excuse me, sir. I'm gonna have to ask you to come with us." Marshall blinked. "I'm sorry." "This row's for graduates' families only," said the second guard, taller, built like he played linebacker on the weekends. Marshall pulled out the folded invitation. "It says front row. Family seating. My granddaughter is graduating today." "Yeah, well," the shorter guard replied, barely glancing at the paper, "we were told this seat isn't assigned." "I was told it was." Marshall's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The taller one shifted, a flicker of unease behind his eyes. "We can find you a different seat. In the back." "I've been in the back before," Marshall said. "Not today." People were watching now. Subtle glances. A phone lifted. A father 2 rows over stopped adjusting his daughter's gown and looked up. The shorter guard's jaw tightened. "We're not trying to start anything. We're just following instructions." "So am I," Marshall said. "I came to sit with my granddaughter's family. This is where I belong." The tension thickened. The guards exchanged a glance. Somewhere behind them, a teacher gestured discreetly to someone near the sound booth. Marshall didn't move. And that's when it happened. 3 rows back, a man stood. Nothing dramatic, no yelling, no posturing. Just a calm, deliberate rise. His build was compact, his stance firm. On his left wrist was a black band, a silent indicator that some things don't fade, even after discharge. Then another man stood near the center aisle. Then another by the right side bleachers. They didn't say a word. They didn't need to. They weren't wearing uniforms, but anyone watching could tell. These were men who had worn them. Who had served. Who had followed orders, and also learned when to stand without being told. The guards paused. The shorter one turned, scanning the crowd. Is there a reason half the room is suddenly standing? A deep voice cut through the gym, not loud, but sharp. Is there a reason you're harassing an old man trying to watch his granddaughter graduate? Heads turned. The speaker stepped forward, a silver-haired man with quiet fire in his eyes. His name was Lionel Briggs, and he owed his life to Marshall Cade. Marshall didn't look back. He didn't have to. The bond between men who've survived the same fire doesn't need confirmation. The guards froze. The taller one, finally reading the moment, took a half step back. Let's just check with the office, he mumbled. The other hesitated. Then Marshall stood. Not to leave. Not to comply. Just to turn fully toward them. I've buried brothers. I've built homes. I've lived longer than most people dream of. What I won't do is walk away from the front row on the day my granddaughter graduates. His voice wasn't loud. But it filled the gym. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was reverent. The kind that settles over a room when something real is happening, something that doesn't fit into rules or assigned seating charts. Marshall didn't glare. He didn't threaten. He just stood tall, chest slightly lifted, eyes unwavering. For a moment, the gym wasn't a school. It was a battlefield of principle. The guards didn't answer. They couldn't. They weren't trained for this kind of resistance, not loud, not aggressive, just unshakable. Briggs stepped forward again, voice level. You can try to move him, but I promise you, you won't like how that story ends. One by one, the men who had stood remained on their feet. Silent. Unyielding. Their eyes not on the guards, but on Marshall. And then something subtle, but powerful, happened. From the student line near the edge of the stage, Jordan turned. Her eyes scanned the crowd, just in time to catch the scene unfolding. Her heart skipped. She knew her grandfather didn't seek attention. But she also knew exactly what kind of man he was. She had grown up watching him treat janitors and CEOs with the same respect. Watching him kneel by her mother's grave without ever shedding a tear in public. She had seen the shadows in his eyes when the news talked about places he never mentioned. Now, she was seeing something else, honor, surrounded by resistance, refusing to move. The principal approached quietly from the side of the gym, speaking urgently to the guards. Whatever she said made the taller one nod and take a step back. But the shorter one, still locked into ego, held his ground for just a moment too long. He muttered something under his breath. Briggs heard it. And that was enough. You're done, he said quietly. The guard froze. Then, just like that, he turned and walked away. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. Marshall didn't follow him with his eyes. He simply exhaled, calm and steady, and sat back down. The men standing around the gym did the same, one by one. As if some invisible signal had told them the moment was over. But the gym wasn't the same. The people inside weren't the same. The energy shifted. Respect had entered the room, and it wasn't going anywhere. Jordan's name was called. She walked across the stage with a kind of pride that can't be taught in classrooms. She didn't rush. Didn't smile nervously. She moved with the quiet certainty of someone who knows exactly who's watching. When she reached the center, she paused. Her eyes found her grandfather's. He didn't wave. He didn't clap. He just nodded, once. A gesture that said, "I'm here. I never left." The applause came. It wasn't the loudest of the day, but it felt the most real. After the ceremony, as the crowd spilled into the parking lot and photos were taken by the dozen, Jordan walked toward him through the chaos. "You stayed," she said, voice trembling. "I said I would," Marshall replied. She hugged him, harder than she meant to. Then pulled back and looked up. "Who were those men?" "Old friends," he said. "The kind that don't ask why. They just stand." Jordan looked past him, saw Briggs and the others standing near the fence, quietly blending back into civilian life. No medals. No speeches. Just presence. "You didn't say a word to those guards," she said. "I didn't need to." They walked together toward his truck, an old Dodge, dusty but dependable. The kind of vehicle that, like him, had earned its miles the hard way. Before he opened the door, Jordan stopped him. "Papa, thank you. For everything." Marshall paused, then smiled softly. "You were the reason I drove 11 hours. And you'll be the reason I'd do it again." As they drove off, the school grew smaller in the rearview mirror. But what happened in that gym, what those who were there had seen, would stay big in their memories. Because sometimes, the strongest stand doesn't come from shouting. It comes from silence. And the kind of man who doesn't move, even when the world tries to push him back. If this story moved you, take a second to subscribe, share it, and let someone know what real strength looks like, when it doesn't need to say a single word.